Welcome, everybody. I'm here with none other than Cody Bjugan, the dirt dog himself. He's made multi-millions of dollars in the land space. And today we're going to talk a little bit about, your personal life. What was your childhood like? How did you get to be the person that you are today? So can you start from the beginning?
That could be a really long answer, but here's what I'll try to hit bullet points, okay? So I grew up in a small little town called Damascus. I think that town got its first street signal when I was in high school. It's a small little town. It was a tough household. Money was a sore topic. I want to be careful to say we were poor, but I would say we were definitely maybe lower middle class, but money was always a tough topic. It was an unhealthy environment, let's just say that, right? I want to be careful about what I say, but just a tough environment, how I grew up. And so anyways, athletics, competitive, so on and so forth. Got into high school, got my car. I failed second grade because I could hardly read. And so anyways, I ended up getting my car, turning 16 when I was a freshman. That was an opportunity for freedom. Played around with drugs and alcohol, got into that early, freshman, sophomore year, kind of got out of it my junior year. Started dating a girl my junior year, the summer of my junior year, between junior and senior. Ended up getting her pregnant. She graduated the year before me, so I was pregnant with my son, or she was whatever, my senior year of high school. So I worked a lot senior year. That was a tough time in my life. Ended up getting married 2 months out of high school. Was full-time in the flooring union. The reason I was in the flooring union is because after 3 months you qualify for health insurance. And so it was a way for me to pay for my baby boy that was on the way. So I think I graduated in June, got married in August, and had my son in September. And so I originally had this vision. I was going to go off to ASU with one of my buddies and do the whole college thing. And instead I went to the school of, hard knocks or reality check. So anyways, went into the workforce, was motivated, driven, workaholic, failed as a husband, failed as a father, did really, really well though. Ended up starting my own business in 2002. Continued my work, being a workaholic. Great recession happened, lost 90% of my net worth, learned a ton through that, and just have really been on a journey through, just all these different life circumstances in my life sculpt me into who I am, right? And I mean, I could go on to I was facing going to prison for 5 years for something that was illegal that I didn't even know was illegal, to losing my net worth, to being a workaholic, to get my high school girlfriend pregnant, I could go on and on. The pretty substantial life experiences I've had, but I can sit here today and tell you that I'm glad I went through it. Like, it's made me into who I am. But it's because I chose to reflect on those times and grow from those times, I'm continuing to develop. And so I just hit some really high points there for you. There's obviously a lot more to the story than that, but yeah. Needless to say, I came up in a tough environment, and I'm very, very focused on pivoting the legacy of our family.
Yeah. You mentioned, you graduated high school, you joined this union, you had a kid. Obviously you were still, not doing super well financially. When was it that kind of turned around for you? And when did you come into when did you start to become financially free and see like the horizon?
Yeah. Financially free is an interesting word because it depends on what your definition of it is. But so what happened is, so I was in that flooring union to get health insurance to pay for my son. When my son, so once I qualified for full health insurance, I left the union. I ended up working for a private company. And then that's a long story because it happened to be my father-in-law, and there's a whole story there about how his company ended up going bankrupt. But we can go there at some point. But anyways, I ended up leaving his company and going to work for another company. And this gentleman that owned that company saw something in me. He saw something in me. And he allowed me to play all out. Like, he didn't put a lot of restraints on me. He just allowed me to go. And because of that, I did some really special things at that company, and at a very, very young age. And I went from being, an entry-level position to being the president of that company, and that company growing. Don't hold me to that, but I probably grew it about 10x. So I probably 10x that company as just a snot-nosed punk kid in my late teens, early 20s.
I mean, you worked super hard. You saw the fruits of your labor, and then what ended up happening was you became confident enough that you could strike it on your own and do a thing.
Yeah.
What made you leave from, making a couple $100,000 a year? What opportunity did you see, and do those same opportunities exist today for other people?
Yeah. It's interesting because I remember so clearly, when I was in high school, let's just call it my senior year, I remember saying, if I could just make $100,000 a year, by the time, in my career, if I could just make $100,000 a year. And then it was, probably within 2 years of graduating high school, I was making $100,000 a year. And so, good question. Like, here you're making a couple $100,000, and you're making double what you thought your goal was, and it was just, I started to realize that there was more out there. There was more to achieve, and I'd gotten to a point where I was actually negotiating with that owner to become a partner in the business. And because I had realized that I either needed to own my own company, flooring company, or I needed to do something different. Yeah. Well, as I had gotten to know these different land developers and home builders because they were our clients, I started to realize how much more opportunity there was in that than there was in the industry I was in. And call me young and dumb, or call me not realizing the risk, call me whatever. Fear just wasn't a big component in my life back then. And so I pretty easily made the leap. And I will tell you though, what did make that leap easier is that there was a gentleman in town that had approached me to be his business partner. So when I started my own business, him and I were partners for a couple of years before I went completely out on my own.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So he was a little bit of a business mentor for you to form this new company.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it was this, you just saw a need in the market, and you're like, I'm going to fill that need.
Yeah. I'm really careful about the word mentor because it's just such a meaningful word.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say the gentleman that brought me into his flooring company was a mentor in some ways. I would say the gentleman that I was partners with a couple of years was a mentor in some ways. It's just, but then there's in other ways that they weren't at all, right? And so, but at the end of the day, both those gentlemen, amongst many other people, have had a huge impact on my story and my journey, for sure.
Last thing I want to touch on, what I love about your story is how I don't want to say self-made, because I don't think any of us are self-made, right? But what I love about it is that you didn't go to college. You didn't, and nothing against college. But you found your path, and you started your journey before you were ready. With getting married right out of high school, and having a baby, and all of these things happened before you would have willed them upon you. Right?
Of course, yeah.
How can other people who want to do something similar to you do, create, both a legacy of wealth and of fulfillment in their lives? How can they get started in, I guess, land? Because that's what we're talking about. How can they get started before they feel ready? Yeah.
Well, if all you're gonna do is sit around and wait till you feel ready, then just give up, right? Like, I think the power is execution, is speed, is urgency, is making decisions, is taking action, is being decisive. Like, quit waiting until you feel ready. Just go for it. I can tell you in all the times in my life that people have a fear of the unknown. The unknown is very scary. So you could say, well, no, I'm just not ready. No, bullshit. You're fearing the unknown. Like, and I can tell you all the times that I've faced my fear. Okay, I'm a big man of faith today, right? Like, and I love Jesus and I have a relationship, I'm a believer. And I can tell you that I can put my faith in the ring with any other emotion or feeling, and faith will win every time. My point in saying that is that whenever I've dealt with fear and just went to battle with it and faced it, you know, eye to eye and just went after it, I've never gotten on the other side of my fear and regretted it, ever. And so, but I think, you know, if you're saying, oh yeah, well, I want to create this legacy, I want to make this, I want to do these things. The first thing, one thing I definitely realized in high school is I knew I didn't want to be like my father. Okay, don't get me wrong, my father is still alive, bless his soul. I mean, he did teach me what hard work was. He did teach me what it's like to be ethical and be trustworthy. But there's a lot of things that I just needed to pivot and go 180 degrees the opposite direction. And so in a young age, I would say probably in freshman or sophomore year, I had definitely realized that I wasn't going to use my father as an excuse for why I was the way I was. See, and the way I figured that out is that my father, he always used his father as the reason why he was who he was. And so if you want to do a pivot, if you want to create a legacy that isn't in alignment with your family's legacy up to this point, you first need to get real about that. And you first need to acknowledge that a pivot has to happen. And what are you willing to do to make that pivot happen?
Well, I guess for anybody watching, if you want to click the link below, you can get started in doing land deals. There's, you know, plenty of courses and stuff available. You can keep watching the YouTube channel as well. Plenty of free information out there. Any last thoughts for anybody watching?
No, just, you know, my hope is that I can, you know, me and my company can be a part of your journey. Remember the whole reason we started VestRight was for PIF. By us having an impact on your life, being a part of your journey, it's going to bring us fulfillment. And I'm not trying to be selfish, but ultimately that's why we started VestRight. So hopefully we can be a part of your journey.